So today we are kicking off our 9 Days of Consciousness series. It's December 1st, so we're very apropos, starting with the number 1. And this was something that back in April, Zenith had sort of walked through the hero's journey in a way, and I'm a very process type person. I know she is too. So really breaking things down and really understanding where we are is sort of integral in moving forward for people like us and for conscious cosmic beings out there. I'm sure they can resonate with that as well. So anything you want to kick off with, or do you want me to just sort of go in?
Yeah, just go ahead with the questions.
Okay.
You're not going to believe something I just realized when I looked up after looking at your outline. Anyway,
Good.
I'll add, I was just like, oh, duh. But anyway.
It was really interesting because I know a lot of people are talking about the social dilemma, and there was one part in that just really stuck out to me. And it was when they were at the Chicago Antitrust Tech Conference, and Tristan Harris, who I'm not a huge fan of, I'll just come right out and say, he basically said that, we're dealing with a totally new species of power and influence, and that, we have these Photoshop didn't have 1,000 engineers on the other side of the screen using notifications, your friends, using AI to predict all these things, and it's a totally new species of power and influence. And Kevin M. Murphy stated back to him, he said, I would say again, the methods used to play on people's ability to be addicted or to be influenced may be different this time, and they probably are different. But the idea that there's this new level, that, the new level has happened so many times before, this is just the latest new level that we've seen. And coming from a news media background, I really saw that at the newspaper. As soon as Facebook started teaming up with local news agencies, it was all about micro-targeting and sort of this new form of grabbing people's attention. So where Tristan Harris and a lot of the tech bros in that industry that sort of created the problem, their solution that we're supposed to entrust with them is to basically regulate, stop the bad actors, blah, blah, blah. And while I still think there's room for that, I think the bigger question is what Kevin M. Murphy states, which is the methods used to play on people's ability to be addicted or to be influenced. And I think that really comes back to the number 1, the start of the hero's journey.
Yes.
Everything starting with an idea and your attention. So I will let you expand on that.
Right. And that is so important, because a large part of the suffering that we all go through is not really knowing who we are, and not really understanding life. So many times I've said, why didn't we come with a manual? Everything else has a manual. Why didn't we get one? Because when you realize, I don't know if that's you, a lot of times when you realize something in your life, it feels like, duh, why didn't I just see this? Why didn't I understand it? How did I fall for this?
Yes.
And I hope enough people realize and wake up and go, how did I fall for this? How did I fall for having my attention just totally taken away from me? How did I fall for having somebody else lead my life and my experiences? Regardless of the fact that that's how we start out in school, pay attention.
Yes.
It's like, and we don't even think about it. We don't even think of the components of life or how things happen. So that's the gem that I was fortunate to come across because of at the age of 19 going, wait a second, I don't understand. What do all these words mean? What does God mean? What does love mean? What is, I just didn't understand. And, as I tried to get information from other people to understand why I was able to do certain things in my life with my mind and, the abilities that we have naturally that we're told that, no, don't do that.
Yes.
And so I came across doing the numeric value of words, because at the time I just so happenstance, I have a medical background, but I happenstance into, during a break, just picking a book up, or, you go in a bookstore not looking for anything, and somehow this numerology book jumped out at me. And I knew about astrology and knew nothing about numerology. And I was like, oh, let me see, this is interesting. And then I looked at my own personality and I was shocked. When it talked about my sensitivity, I was like, oh my God, this is why I'm shy. And so it really inspired me to to look into it more. And at the time I was working counseling with people and doing programs with affirmations. And the thing that surprised me so much was how many people didn't know what they wanted or who they were.
Yeah.
You know, and I'm like, wow, okay. So the numerology came in great because I could look up their personality. I could see what their strengths and weaknesses were. And it was so accurate. And I was like, well, if it's so accurate with that, I mean, it kind of blew me away. I'm like, I don't know this person. They would walk in and I was like, okay, let's do this because you don't know.
Yeah.
Let's see what this has to say. And they go, oh, yeah, that's so true. That's so true. So I was like, wow. So after a few years of that, I was just like, well, what about these words we say? You know, I mean, I wonder if it would work with that. And so I started doing it and I saw the duality there. And I was like, oh my God, this is crazy. You know, I just heard Einstein, God doesn't play dice with the universe, you know, and okay, there is perfect order. So I had a computer database built and the rest is history. Here we are. That was back in the early 90s. Here we are, how many, over 30 years later, and I have a database of over 7,600 words and phrases.
Yes.
And so from it, I discovered the hero's journey, the creative process of life that they did not give us the manual for. You know, if they just given us a manual and then you go, oh, everything begins with an idea.
Mm-hmm.
Even to get up out of this chair, I have to have an idea.
Yes.
And, you know, and that's how it all starts. And it's interesting that the people, whether it's advertising, marketing, I mean, they know very well what that, you know, that happens. And what's so interesting about the growth process and when, you know, because on my walk, I was just, you know, I was thinking about your outline and I was going, yes, it's all about growth. And I'm going, oh, I don't remember what number growth is. And so, you know, like getting ready and I was like, oh, let me hurry up and look. And I'm going, oh my God, it's the exact same number as idea. I'm like,
oh, wow.
I know.
Yeah.
Right? How long have we been talking? And I've seen it. And that's what's so wild about having this, because I'm not one that is wanting to look at something to make my ideas. I just use it as a reference. It's like, you know, that's what I've done for like over 30 years, use it as a reference. And in the last year of making a course out of it, you know, I've just been so overwhelmed at the order and, you know, life does have order and the patterns. And when you allow words to define each other just by how they're grouped, you know, like that makes growth and idea makes so much more sense now when you realize they're the same.
Yeah. Yeah. And it's interesting too. I just to backtrack a little bit, when I was first taking this tarot class, they were, you know, you go through the 4 suits and swords are intellect and wands are creativity and, you know, and so on and so forth. And they're always 10 cards and it's always this 1, 2, 3, 4, and you get to 10 and you've completed the series or whatever. Mm-hmm. And it's so interesting that, you know, it reminds me of that line in Jurassic Park, life always finds a way. And, you know, we're just, growth is the most natural thing that happens on this planet. It's consciousness always wants to expand. And so when you start with these ideas, and even when I started working with you, I remember that was like really impactful, like just thinking like, where are my ideas really coming from? And at the time, you know my story, but after I had left my 12-year career, I had no identity, like I lost myself. And so it was this process of, you know, figuring out like all the stuff that I've learned, like how did it get to this point and come crashing down and all that. And really just, and you know, just going back to attention, like I think a lot of people, and myself included at the time, didn't realize that attention is like the beginning. And then there's all these effects after, and you cannot not be creating. So you're either creating your reality, somebody else's reality, you're either living your story or finishing someone else's story, but, and you know, that's my piece.
Yeah, no, but that's the beauty of, no, that was wonderful, because that's the beauty of understanding that it's growth. And then it's so wild because you can actually go back to biology. Everything is the same. So it's like, you know, the life, we say everything is one, right? Everything just starts as a whole, as one. But then the cell divides into 2.
Yes.
Okay. And that's, you can see that when you're looking at the numbers of words. it comes out of the wholeness. It comes out of love. It comes out, an inspired idea, which we need to distinguish as we're saying, where did this thing come from that's becoming growth? We can have growth from three things, and well, more than three, but I'll say three that most common is we'll have growth from an inspired idea, right? And then that's heaven. That's, that's the real hero's journey. That's when you feel like, okay, this is painful, but I know I have to do it. And I know something's going to come from this, and so, there's that inspired idea that goes off on this process that we'll be, discussing in the 9 days. And then there's a suggestion from Facebook, from news media, from school, from your parents, and, and those things, when we go off on those, we always, there's that kind of emotions, anger, or so many things happen, feeling lost because you're off on this journey and this thing is growing. That's been a suggestion that you might not even relate to. Mm-hmm. And as we'll see as we progress, that suggestion will become a belief.
Yes.
And then we think that's who we are. Like you thought your identity was your newspaper career or whatever. We think that's who we are. But then the other thing is, which is also number one, is emotion. Okay. Rather than emotion being a part of an experience, we can have an emotion that becomes an idea. Like you get the idea, I'm angry. And then you have all these thoughts that flood in to tell you why you're angry. And you build that. That anger has growth.
Yeah. So the difference between an inspired idea and an emotional idea, maybe you could delve into that a little bit.
An emotional idea is like, say, every experience has emotion attached to it. It's energy in motion, right?
Yes.
So you have this emotion, because it's, there is a distinction between emotion and feel, but feel is also there as well. So we can feel something, but that's different than an emotion, because an emotion has an assumption to it. That's emotion, it's a reaction to something. So if you have this emotion and that becomes your idea, you wake up and, or something happens to you and you're upset. When you're in a place of a feeling place, your thoughts are going to correspond with how you feel. So whatever thought you bring in will be your idea. This person was bad. This person did that, And that brings us to another thing that's so important to realize when you get back your attention, and how important it is to own your attention, because then when these suggestions come in, that it's not you.
Right.
If there's a suggestion that you're not good enough, you see that. If you can put your attention on it, then it can't be you.
Yeah. Well, and I've been off Facebook for about a month now. And even just what a difference in my own, I really, and even people have said to me, they're like, you seem calmer and you seem like you're really coming out now and like all these things. And I was like, I just can't believe how much like residue of other people's thoughts and feelings and noise that was just attached to me. And, I'm trying to do this thing here and it's like every day bombarded with baloney.
Right. And the thing about it is we think that's who we are. When we feel these things, we think that's who we are.
Right.
Rather than realizing that we're the attention. The closest thing to who we are is the attention.
And it's crazy too. For myself, I identified so much with these emotions, and then I would beat myself up for being them, for I'm always this way. You always say the greatest hits, playing the greatest hits in my head. I always do this. And what about that time? And
and we believe that's who we are. When, it's, how could it be? And we're creative beings. We don't realize that we can take whatever and create from it. It doesn't matter. We just put our attention on it and that becomes what we're going to grow.
Yeah.
And that's like putting the sunlight on something, woo, okay.
Oh my gosh.
Watch
exactly.
it grow.
Yep. Put the light on something and it will grow that way. It will grow right toward it. Yep.
Yeah.
Exactly. And you've always been so good about even in our coaching sessions. I've shown up pretty emotional sometimes. And, we do these so many different types of breath work exercises, really just to like calm down and kind of just get a hold of your attention again and get it off from wherever it's being siphoned to. So those have all been really, I was looking back on our notes and I was like, wow, I had some pretty crazy visualizations from our breath work sessions.
Yeah. And that's the whole thing too, is, that's the challenge and why, it's helpful to have someone else intercede. Because when we get locked, it's really, and that's the challenge. And as we'll move through the numbers, we'll get to it at some other point, but we're going to stay focused here on the one. But the challenge is, part of the whole growth experience and awareness is to have an experience. The whole idea of having an idea is to have an experience.
Yes. And you always say the creator is the creation,
Yeah. So we're one, but yet we have this split that occurs, and then we union back up for the birth, to be the birth of something.
Yeah.
And so, it's like if you're too far of an observer, then you miss the experience. So it's that fine line between allowing yourself to submerge yourself in your experience so you can have it for the growth, but yet be able to realize and remember who you are.
And I think that's always been like, even when I was outlining the hero's journey here, like that stage one is called the departure. The hero leaves the familiar world behind. So there's this, we want to go out and do something new or experience something new. And often, a lot of times we find ourselves so comfortable that, it's boring and we want to get out there and do something new. And it is always, after I had this big change of life and became more conscious and more aware of what I was doing, it was like I was having a tough time jumping into something and not being too like heady about it and thinking, you do have to let go and experience, but while knowing that you're conscious the whole time and,
and it's that
you're going to
balance.
Experience the results of it one way or another.
But that's the appreciation of life, is balance. It's like when we're learning to walk. We have to take, we're off balance on one foot and then we go down with the other. And, you see the kid go, ooh, and it's like we're doing that. We're learning to navigate through life like that, because where's the joy if you're just, I can, what am I saying? You can, dissect. You can get into that place of dissecting life, or just going off on, beliefs, your own assumptions of what life is, rather than just being present in your experience.
Yeah.
But yet at the same time, operating as a conscious creator that's experiencing it. Yeah. It's a challenge that we all have the opportunity to continually grow on. It's not something where you arrive and you stop. You continually have that opportunity to grow,
And you also said back in our session that attention on your intention is really all in the one as well.
Yeah, well, the intent, which is the same as the idea. You have to, it's like owning that. It's like feeling that, and it's interesting is voice. I'm really, Oracle of Voice, where that came from was really appreciating how voice and love have the exact same number. And by being in touch with your voice, that is when you're in touch with love.
Yeah.
And what's so cool is when you trust your voice, you put your attention on trusting your voice, then you're with your intent, because your voice is what brings things into creation. Yeah. It's what, so yeah, it's.
And I think too, just what you said before about like going on the hero's journey, when you really are being true to yourself and true to that voice, and you have this intention that you're putting your attention on, you will be challenged. You're going to catch flack. You're going to come up against the tests and that. And it's always returning to that voice and just staying guided and staying in your own power and your own authority and, that. Yeah.
I just want to make one distinction that as far as, intent and intention are two different things. You have an intent because you have an idea. But when we get to the three, we'll distinguish with intention. Because I only because a lot of self-improvement stuff is start with the intention. And I don't know about other people, but I was always like, well, how do I start with intention? How do an intention just doesn't come. It has to be developed. So that's a real important distinction. So what I might say even is a better way is focus. You know, you have this idea and you have to focus on it. What is this idea?
Yeah.
You
And
have,
for me too, I think, and both of us are, meditators and all that and certified and all that. And, for me, when I came out of that career, I had so many ideas in my head and things I wanted to do. And it was really through meditation that I was able to focus and able to
right.
sort of just say, okay, that's not it. That's not it. That's not it. That's not it.
Mm-hmm,
And that was a
that's
grueling
it.
process.
Yeah, right. Yeah, right. And so it's enough to put your attention on it. You have that focus enough to get to the number 2, which we'll talk about tomorrow, to be able to perceive it. You see,
Yeah.
so the focus from that, it's like germinating the idea, is where we're going to next.
Yeah, and I think think of just how easy it is to give up at one for so many people, because either
right.
attention has been stolen from you or it's difficult or it's been siphoned somewhere. But even just when you go after so many times of like, oh, that's not it. Oh, that's not it. Oh, that's not it.
Right,
but
right.
and then that's why it's called the hero's journey,
Right,
because
right.
it's
Right. And also, too, it's just, I think, something we all need to realize is just from the way we were schooled and the way we were raised, there's a guilt factor in owning your own attention, owning yourself. It's just like, what? I can do that? Where it's imperative. That's who we are.
Well, and in the beginning, I opened with kind of throwing some salt at Tristan Harris. And that's, it's interesting because this whole social dilemma, like within that documentary, we have 2 solutions being presented to us. And one is that, well, don't you worry about it, baby. We're going to bring the government in. We're going to regulate it. We're going to keep you nice and safe because we know that you can't own your attention. And we know that you guys are just not able to get there. And then we have the other side of it that's saying, like, why don't we just fix the the source issue, which is why is our people so easily manipulated to begin with? And I would say that this is just an accumulation over time.
Yes.
But
yes, and it's that's the sad part, because here we have on one side, at the end of that social dilemma, the thing that really struck me was they actually put it on the screen that they have an attention extraction model.
Yeah, that's insane. And they call it the Detention Economy.
Yes. And that's an economy to grab someone's attention so you can tell them what they need, what they should buy, how they should live. And it's all so that you can market them something or have, that's really amazing.
And you can speak to this too, but for anyone out there that is like, okay, Jackie, you're being a little short-sighted. We do need regulation and we do need these things. I agree to an extent. But at the same time, as someone who has lived it and done it, now that I have ownership of my attention, I can't imagine it being taken away from me at any point. Like, it's almost like once you get through that first threshold or that first big realization of it, Facebook could suggest the same damn thing to me every day and it wouldn't, I just feel almost immune to that. That kind of.
Right. Well, congratulations. Now you're alive.
Exactly. And this is that whole thing, so many people talk about you gotta die to live. And, that's a theme in a lot of our heroes' journeys.
Right. And people don't even realize it because they're so used to living outside of themselves. They're so used to just having these extensions out there because we start school that way. For me, it was a little bit different, not as intense because, being 65, I had a life where I had privacy in my childhood. Yes. Kids don't even have that now.
I know.
And just being hooked to a screen. But even from a medical standpoint, it's sad to me from, taking people's attention. You don't know how to take care of your body. Here you must go to a doctor who has not even had a course in nutrition. I think now they maybe have one. But when I was going, when I was doing my pre-med back in the 70s, doctors, very few medical schools even had a course in nutrition.
Yeah.
So that is why Jell-O was the prescription after surgery. How nutritious is Jell-O? At least give us a miso broth or something. But then we're told this is who you go to tell you about your body. Yeah. Why don't you know about your body?
Well, even, I mean, it's funny even just mentioning that, because I was thinking before we started this call, I mean, I loved my dad. He was such a huge figure in my life. And I remember when I turned 18 and I could vote I think I voted in the Gore election. I think that was the first time I got to vote.
Cats.
Yeah. And it was funny because I just turned 18. I was new to this whole process. I mean, I was like, okay, so I go in and, you go into the poll, and it was still the lever system. And he just gave me a piece of paper that was everyone to vote for. And I was like, thanks, Dad. Went in and voted. So Jacki Roach got 2 votes that year. And, and then I was, and we were blue collar Democrats over here, we're in a blue collar city. And I just had that idea for such a long time because I looked up to my dad, and he said to do this. And then, even coming, my dad's passed 10 years ago. So even like going through this whole new identity, I felt like there was some betrayal in like actually thinking differently than him, and he's dead. So I can't ask him any questions, but it's, yeah. And I think all this too is really an exercise in maturity and growth, and that's what it's all about,
Yeah, and that's so important, as we'll continue as we go along, is to realize how we live our life based on beliefs that started as an idea that we might not have even chosen. It might have given to us, like that was given to you. You go vote.
Yeah.
It wasn't even your idea. You didn't even understand what voting was. You didn't even know who you were voting for, but yet you're being told that you're using your voice.
Yes. Oh yeah. Can we say the other, your vote is not your voice. Your voice is your voice.
But but that's why it's so important to understand the creative process. Yes. And it doesn't matter how that idea got there, as long as it follows the cycle of growth, it will become your beliefs and it will become your life.
Yeah. Well, and just like you said, I mean, that we have this attention extraction model. I mean, people know the creative process. There are plenty of people that know it,
right,
and are employing it. So,
and totally.
Well, I think we can end there today. This was about a half an hour. We could talk forever.
I know. Yes, man. It was great. It was wonderful. I'm looking forward to tomorrow to follow up on this.
Germinating our ideas. Yes.
Yes. Because it is like growth. It's like growing a baby. It's, and if we started really appreciating how our ideas are like a baby, and we treated it with respect and realized, I mean, well, in this case, we do have a choice on, we can pick the baby in this situation,
Well, and just how important it is to respect that, to respect your choices and respect yourself. I mean, that's
right. And also too, when you have a belief, stop and go, where did this belief come from? What's the idea? Yeah. Rather than assuming that something is true.
Yes. And again, it's, so many are just caught in the path of least resistance and just, taking, and I get it, I totally understand it, but hopefully conversations like this
will encourage people to build their own life manual. We weren't given one, but that doesn't mean that you can go through life without one.
Yeah.
Life, it has order, it has process, it's complete.
And you just think of, a woman getting pregnant and her body knows exactly what to do. That baby is going to be born, and we can all just trust ourselves a little more and really start developing this side of ourselves. So
Right. Through observation, we can understand. That's how all of the people that are using it against us, that's what they did. They observed. Well, what happens when we do this? Oh, they'll do this. We need to do that ourselves. What happened when we do this? Oh, we'll do this. Oh, is that what I want? Oh, is that what I want to believe?
Well, I can't wait till we get to 5, the experience, because as I say, you're either the experiment or you're the scientist, but one or the other.
Right. Oh, thanks so much. This was fun.
Yeah. It goes so fast, doesn't it?
I know.
I feel like we've been talking for like 5 minutes. But...
Right. Well, before we keep going, it'll be another hour.
Yes. Okay. I'll see you, Zenith. We'll see you guys for day 2 tomorrow, the germination and all that fun stuff. So everyone have a great day, and we'll see you again soon.
Okay, great. Thanks.
Bye-bye.